Hi, fellow traders. I hope everybody had a good day today. It was a pretty decent day in chat, but price action wasn't all that good. Wasn't a whole lot of decent opportunities out there, or a whole lot of good opportunities out there. There was some okay ones. I started the morning out watching KORS. Don't have to take the kids to school in the morning, so had able to get in a little bit early and was looking at KORS. So I kind of paper traded it this morning, starting here before 8 o'clock. I was watching it. We had a big, you know, gap up and almost hit this level here, 48.13, after earnings was announced. And then we got a pull in and it pulled all the way back to this 43.87 level. And it kind of gapped up on this candle. So I went ahead and went long. I was just, testing some stuff and I wasn't gonna, get in using real money at this point. So, I was watching this level and I took it and, right here at the 9, I took some off and then went all the way back up to VWAP. So it was a nice move and it had a lot of volume for it to be pre-market. It was picking up some pretty good volume here. And I just kind of watched it into the open. And it was under VWAP. And so I kind of expected it to make this same move out of the open. And sure enough, that's about what it did. But the only difference is VWAP came in pretty hard and took up some of that trading range. So I took it again here off this level. I'm looking for it to push back up to VWAP. And everything worked out pretty good. Felt pretty good making these trades, but then again, it was on paper and it wasn't, um, the same as trading real money. You don't experience the emotions, but at least my thought process was good, and my thesis was good on this. Pretty much all day. We did have some people in chat just wanted this thing to fade. I guess they kept shorting it and then wanting it to run into the daily 200, which came in here around 45.60s, for it to hit it and pull back. But it was just strong all day. Once it got back over this VWAP, that was it. It stayed above it all day and just really didn't give you that many opportunities. But this was a ticker that I was watching out of the open, because of what I saw pre-market and what I anticipated it doing. Still don't know if I'm going to trade out of the gate tomorrow or not. I said I'd give myself a full week. So we'll see. I may just wait till Monday and then resume that part. But I am doing reversals. Just didn't call anything out or alert my trades, but I did call out the setups and what I was looking at on one reversal. Let's see, that was on WB. This was a textbook one. I mean, it was beautiful. We had ascending volume, which is what I like to see, and it did die off a little bit here, but this on the run up is what really made me feel that this was a good setup. Plus, we almost tapped 80 here on the RSI, which is another piece to the puzzle. I won't trade on one indicator alone. There's just a couple that I use. I don't over indicate myself. It's just things that I look for. I look for the volume. I look for the RSI to be in the extreme. I look for a nice ramp up. nice angle to the upside, and I'm looking for enough, profit potential in case it failed to follow through once it hit the 9 moving average. But one unique thing about this was an all-time high, and if you know me, I like to trade using support and resistance. And being up this high, there was no resistance to base the trade off of. So as I said in chat, the only thing I could use is the half dollar and whole dollar marks. So I was looking at 2050 and I almost got in here or took some here at 2050, but I said no, I need to wait for this thing to roll over. And once it rolled over, then that would give me a little bit safer entry. So I got in here at 27.52, and my stop was gonna be a close back over 27.60. It didn't matter whether it made a new high. I just didn't want it to close above this 27.60, because if it did, then my trade thesis was dead and that was it. So I got in here, got almost immediate resolve here, and it didn't quite tap the 9 here, but then this candle opened and we got a nice little wash. So I covered it just below the 9, right here at 27.10, and then it got bought right back up. But then this candle opened, it tried to push up a little bit, but then it sold back off, and then this candle sold off and got me the VWAP, but it moved so fast I waited to see what it would do. I was thinking it might lose the 20, but it opened and it started to push up, and it kind of shook me out. So I went ahead and took profit here. I was only looking at covering twice on this, but it did have a little bit more to the downside. I just didn't catch it. Kind of got spooked out here because this candle opened right at the 20 and it pushed up, and my goal was VWAP. That was my final target. So I was already below it, so I went ahead and took it. But on these trades, you just can't worry about missing out on this. I got the meat of the move, and I'm just trying to get back in the saddle. So that was a pretty decent trade. But that's what stood out about this one, was that there was no resistance for me to base this trade off of. So I reverted to using the half dollar, and this is kind of what I based it off of. Even though it went up to 27.60, I was basing this off the half dollar, that it was going to fail to push through this or hold over it, and it didn't. And then this candle gave me a good risk reward. So not a bad trade, not a bad reversal. And I think tomorrow I'm going to be looking at the same. I did wire out at the end of the month, so my buying power is down. So I'll be looking for lower dollar tickers to see if I can get some pretty solid moves out of this. All right, so that's all I have for tonight. I hope everybody has a great evening, great night, or a great morning if you're down under. And I'll see everybody tomorrow morning in chat.